Issues coming to you live from the heart of Manhattan, Rockefeller Center, New York City, Newsstand Studios, joined as usual with John. How you doing? All the way over in the back there.
Doing great.
Yeah?
Good to be back.
Yeah, good to be back. Also got behind me, because I'm not in my normal position, Joe Hazen rocking the panels. What's up?
Hey, welcome to the studio.
Hey. Over there on the West Coast, we got some Jackie Molecules. How you doing?
I'm good.
Awesome.
Packed house there, huh?
What? Fantastic.
Packed house over there, huh?
Oh, yeah, super packed. Yeah, it's definitely beyond what we're probably legally allowed to do over here. And I think also Nastasia the Hammer Lopez, how you doing?
I'm good.
Now, I rocked in here so hot and sweaty. So hot and sweaty. You familiar with the song Typhus by 300 Pounds of Goo Wop?
No.
Yeah. Well, the story of the song is that they dropped out of college, didn't need it. You spend that money for no reason. I told my mom she won't believe this. I put 500 on my Typhus. It was like a huge hit, like, I don't know, like 10 years ago in Daytona Beach, and they never made it. But Jetson Maid was the producer, so, good song. However, the one line that always goes in my head is it goes, I popped a Molly, and now I'm sweaty. And so whenever I'm super sweaty, that's like, even though I've never tried Molly. I hear it's a great drug, though. I've never tried it. Anyway, I came in here I was super late. I was biking like a lunatic. I'm super late because I was in a code hole this morning. You guys ever go into a code hole? I was writing some optimization program for a least squares problem, and all of a sudden I looked up and it was like 10 minutes after I was supposed to leave the house. So I apologize for that, folks. So what I'm not sure is, do we have Quinn in the upper left? Because I know he's been sick. I was hoping he was going to be well enough to be on the air today.
Unfortunately, he can't join us today.
Oh, man, that's too bad.
So we send out our regards. Hey, Quinn, feel better?
Yeah, I feel better, Quinn. So we've missed a couple of weeks. Just so you know, if you're listening on Patreon, we are going to do, I think, a makeup episode on Friday. True?
I don't know. Sure.
I think so.
Yeah.
We're going to do a makeup episode soon with Nick, the Captain Greasy, the Oily Spoon, Olive Man, Coleman. So stay tuned for that. But
we have two other guests coming on soon as well. Osei Endlin, a really great food writer, and then Chef David Stainbridge, who won this year's James Beard Best Northeast for his restaurant, Shipwright Stutter and Mystic.
Yeah, Mystic. Yeah. Have I been back to Mystic recently? Anyway, all coming up. But today, the full house to which Jackie Molecules refers to, and by the way, Nastasia the Hammer Lopez, I think, set this one up. I'm very happy to, wait, Peter, have you been here before? No. So first time ever, Peter Hoffman, writer, and also with him, his partner in writing crime, then none other than the bread lunatic himself. What do you mean? Shaking your head like you're not a bread lunatic? Which is it that you're not bread or not lunatic?
I'm just bread obsessed. That's all.
No, I mean, they're separate. The lunatic and the bread are separate.
I've got fermentation issues.
Oh.
That's a new one.
You have a lot of energy. Are you sure you've never tried Molly?
No, I hear it's fantastic, though.
It's just ecstasy.
Yeah, I know.
It's just
I'm aware, yes.
Where were you? Where were you after 9/11? I mean, everyone was doing ecstasy after 9/11.
I was already, at that time, married for a long time. So I never understood going to clubs if you're married, because
who needs that?
Who needs that? The drinks are terrible. The music is often bad. You know what I mean? Yeah.
You could do the Molly in your bed.
That's true.
Yeah, but then, I don't know, it's weird because I do like dancing. Nastasia, don't I like dancing?
Love dancing.
Wow.
I love dancing. So, but the thing is, I don't need drugs. Like, once you want, it takes a little bit to get me out onto the dance floor, but once I get out there, it's like you spin me up and that's it. I'm a gyro. I just keep going until the music stops or I pass out. So it's don't need the Molly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I'm not going to go home with anyone other than my wife, so I don't need that either. So what are you going to do? Maybe someday. Should I try it? At this point, what does it do? What does it do if you're just hanging around?
It's an intimacy drug. It was meant to help
That's a good
people,
way of
but it's true though. It was really helped. Initially, it was designed or developed apart from post-traumatic stress disorder, but it was really of marriage, by the way. But it was really designed and prescribed mostly for couples to reconnect with one another.
I see.
And become more intimate and friendly. And there
was money behind that problem back in the day.
There still is money
I mean,
behind that problem even today.
I mean, all right. I didn't know that big pharma spent money on emotional problems. That's heartening.
It's called psychiatry.
Oh, yeah.
Prescribe the drugs.
Yeah. I get you. All right. So now is the portion of
like LSD was very big on that too, way back in the day.
Yeah, I remember it being more the CIA dosing people and the Army dosing people so that they could see if they could F with them.
Well, psychiatrists were given license to prescribe it in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
So.
In fact, it was fairly close to here that that poor sorry guy jumped out of the or was pushed out of the hotel near 34th Street, who was part of the MK Ultra CIA program where they were dosing him constantly with LSD.
It's funny, I had the honor of having dinner with Timothy Leary's widow.
Oh,
about a month ago.
How is she alive?
She's great. She's really sweet.
Wouldn't she be $1.3 billion?
No, she's not that old.
So he married someone real young. He married someone really young.
She was either 70s or 80s, but she's an absolute sweetheart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, does she share in all of his?
I didn't tell her that I knew who she was.
Oh, what's that all about?
Well,
so you couldn't have any real discussions about it.
Well, I didn't want to.
Did you know at the time?
Yeah, but at the end of the day, she wanted to reveal
Where
that.
Was it?
What?
Well, never mind.
No, it was out in Sag Harbor.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So how long after the reveal were you there? Could you be like, so did you save it all? Was it all shot into space? Were all the ashes shot into space?
No.
They were not?
No, they were not.
Oh. What's the best use of one's own human ashes? It's got to be Lemmy. Lemmy from Motorhead.
Oh,
I
don't know.
He had his ashes stuffed inside of 50 different bullets, and then had them mailed to all of his friends. And so it was like you got like a Lemmy bullet.
Oh, that's a good one.
I think Hunter Thompson was shot out of a cannon, right?
Yeah, that checks out. That checks out.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I think Ray Bradbury was also shot into space. That was checks out.
Mm.
You know what?
Space team's good, though.
You know what I want? Nothing. I don't care because I'll be dead. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so off the death thing. What do you guys got going for this week? What's going on? What happened in the past week? It's been the past 3 weeks actually for us, right? It's been a while. I've been to Australia. I just got back from Australia.
Really?
Yeah.
How was it?
It's great. It's far away. I've never been before.
How many hours?
24.
Yeah.
It's a little longer. If I had to make sure I made my connection, so I had to give myself more of an LA layover.
How long did you stay?
Like 4 days.
Oh, that's too short.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's work. I wasn't going on vacation.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Well, but still.
Yeah.
You could travel that far. You might as well hang there for a bit.
What part?
Sydney only.
Huh.
Yeah.
Had you been before?
No. But
will you go back?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I would like to go back for longer. I would like to go to more of the places. You know what I mean? Like people from Australia, I think, go all over Australia. Even though Australia is freaking ginormous, like they go everywhere. You know what I mean? They're like, have you been to Melbourne? Oh, they call it Melbourne. I'm like, no, I've not. No, I'm here in Sydney. I'm working, and then I got to go home. You know what I mean? I want to go to Darwin. There is a woman who runs helicopter foraging tours in Darwin. How sick is that? Like, Nastasia loves helicopters. I've never been in a helicopter, and they frighten me like terribly because they don't want to stay in the air of their own accord, unlike an airplane, which is, like a glider once the motor runs out. I mean, I know a good helicopter pilot, whatever. Anyway, but you would go out there into because outside of Darwin, which is tiny and in the north, you go outside of it, and you're in it. You know what I mean? So she knows where these plants are, and she go, and then you go make drinks with them.
That's cool.
It's cool, right?
Yeah.
I can't believe you flew all the way out there and didn't go do the thing that you're saying. That sounds insane. Like, why not just stay
Did you
for an
swim?
Well, here's what I heard.
Dave, did you swim?
Of course not.
What?
Why would I swim?
Because you're right near the f***ing ocean. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I must say that. You're right near the
I saw the ocean.
freaking ocean.
I saw the ocean. I saw one of the most beautiful venues restaurants I've ever. It's called Iceberg. Although I don't think they have a wedge salad. If your restaurant is called Iceberg and you don't have a wedge salad, what is wrong with you? I literally turned to someone next to me. I was like, "Do you guys have iceberg lettuce here?" They're like, "Yeah." Like, "Do you have bacon?" "Yeah." "Have you heard of blue cheese?" They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, what the hell? You know what I mean? It's like, how do you? That salad is terrific. John, back me up on this.
Yeah, it's delicious.
It's a terrific salad.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of salad, crouton thoughts?
Like how? Like what?
Feelings on croutons?
I love croutons, but there's so many ways to make croutons.
Okay, crappy bread crouton?
Favorite way of making croutons. You want to hear it?
Yes.
Okay. Stale the hell out of bread. Get a whole loaf of bread, let it stale to the point where, like, if you were to touch it, it would fall apart. Soak it in water, the whole thing. If you don't want the croutons to be too rustic, peel off the crust of the bread after the bread is completely soaked up all the water and has probably quadrupled its initial size. And then squeeze out the water of the bread with your hands, and then make these like kind of large chunks, and then let them dry like that. And they're like glass-like because the starch, the alveoli, the starch, the structure of the dough, when it dehydrates and rehydrates, it kind of has more like a crystal-like. It crystallizes actually as it dries. And when you rehydrate it with water, its texture and re-dry it again. It's like the opposite of what you would think. You get a loaf of bread, you rip it into a bunch of chunks, you put it onto a sheet tray. New York Times says you should put some salt and oil and spices on it.
Hey, wait, whoa, stop. What's that shade? What's that shade? You don't believe in salt and oil? What's the shade?
No, what do you mean? What do you mean?
You're like, the New York Times.
No, I'm saying like the standard, whatever. Some food blogger, some whatever, some
the old gray lady. Puts oil.
No.
Oil and salt.
Leave the old gray lady alone. She's fine. But it's what it is. It's all about like
he still holds a freaking grudge about the article. About the no-knead article that went viral on the Times before the book came out. You still hold a grudge. I can feel it.
Which one?
The original Pittman one. That was Times, wasn't it?
No. I don't have a grudge against that. No. I don't have any grudges at all. People have a tendency.
Okay.
But wait. There were 4 press releases before my bakery opened up. 4 independent press releases. You're a competent journalist, right?
I mean, no.
In context, in 1994,
right.
What was the most important piece of food journalism in New York City?
Times.
Okay. So the authority,
Second was Time Out.
The authority of food didn't do their research and see that the name of the baker was Jim Lahey, not to be confused with John Dunsworth, but Jim Lahey. Theoretically, you think they would have said Jim Lahey was the baker, but the hands of the baker are evident on everything. And I realized in making that posting that people seemed to respond negatively to, that I had harbored an enormous amount of resentment toward the senior editor then and now, context, a long time, toward the senior editor. And I didn't realize why, for years after that piece of press came out, why I was so kind of like miffed, annoyed at her. But then I realized I got over it. I forgave her. I think she's a brilliant.
You should.
Of course, it doesn't really matter. However, my bakery is 30 years old this year.
Today, maybe.
No, on the 21st.
What is today?
Okay.
It's like that Earth, Wind, and Fire song, the 21st
of 17th. Sorry, it's this week.
Okay, yeah. Oh, by the way, in the scheme of 30 years, that's today.
Yeah, in the scheme of 30 years. So you think...
And people won't hear this till Friday, so...
You think...
Tomorrow. It's 30 tomorrow.
Well, I reached out to the paper a couple of times. I don't have a...
don't ever reach out to a reporter. Don't
Why?
Because they don't want to give you anything in the future. Just let all mistakes... Unless they've accused you of something horrible...
Yeah.
Just let it go.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, water under the bridge.
Also, by the way, just so anyone can...
But you think that a competent journalist would have corrected that with the official opening of the bakery, according to the authority at that time, you know?
First of all, I'll just say this.
But I want to say one thing. Obviously now the New York Times is not as relevant as it was then.
Wow. But no shade thrown.
We still want them to cover things.
No shade thrown.
Only if objectively.
Peter is a smart man.
No, he is, but only objectively if there's a reason to. If they decide not to because I throw them shade.
We hate them.
No, I don't. My career would be nothing without Mark Bittman and Florence Fabricamp. They made me. I mean, I'm joking. Yeah.
All right.
Look, I pitched Ruth Reichel on my no-knead bread recipe, and she wasn't interested way back when. Well, no, it's not shade. I mean, she even acknowledges that probably wasn't I mean, based on his popularity, but at the time, in context, I probably did a horrible presentation. I probably, I probably messed up the sales pitch, because I have a tendency of doing that. So it's not like, that's okay. Water under the bridge.
For a little context,
that's a cute story.
For people who aren't like in their 50s, for a little context here, right? In 1994, there were people making bread in New York, but I mean, there was a couple of people making bread that I would buy in New York. Mm-hmm. However, bread here sucked.
Which bakery did you like in 1994?
I lived. Well, the only bakery in non-bagel bakery. Let's just stipulate non-bagel. Can we stipulate this?
Yeah, non-bagel.
And non-Jewish traditional bakery. So I'm stipulating non-Jewish, and also not like Orwasher style.
You have a lot of exclusions.
I'm talking about bread.
Oh, yeah, bread.
Okay, give me a bread. 1994.
The only place I used to go was Amy's.
Interesting.
Because they were
they were making good bread. I worked for her,
Really?
First, 1992, first 3 monmonths that she opened, I was the bread shaper. So if you got bread that was misshapen, it was my fault.
Probably. Do you remember, she used to make very stretchy, chewy loaf, like a real glassy outside with olives in it, like in the little shape.
Those like twisty thing. I forget. Yeah. But I used to, but I got my job working for her by not through my resume, which was kind of ridiculous. I had no resume, but by baking a loaf of bread and bringing it to her and saying, "Hire me." And she was like, "Wow, you make good bread. You're hired."
Nice.
It was great.
And that was a flash in the pan. That didn't stick. You with the bread. So
but I didn't like that I was just shaping the bread.
Yeah.
Because I think that like a baker really needs to see the whole process from the making of the dough to seeing the finished product. And I thought the way she had her labor kind of like divided. There was one person who did dough, one person or a group of people who did shaping, and then a whole other crew that dealt with the shaped and refrigerated dough to bake it, which is pretty much...
She was all retarded stuff back then?
Well, yeah, that's pretty much the way that like most bakers, like it's the sourdoughs that you see with all the blisters all over it.
Yeah.
That's like classic refrigerator dough. Like, I mean, I'm not throwing shade on tartine, but that's like... Tartine, that's like...
Here we go.
No, not. But this is just the way everyone works. There was a bread consultant named Tom Leonard.
I don't know.
He was a big bread consultant, and he influenced a lot of, like, I think Nancy Silverton's La Brea style. So a lot of that... I
followed her recipe. Remember way back in the day, the... Cooking with Master Chefs, and she was the early one with the grape sourdough, where she used grapes as the wild yeast format. Yeah. I mean, not saying that you need to do that. I'm not talking about the science, but that was like early like regular Mo sourdough people.
Sourdough's everywhere. The flora for it is like on everything. It's.
I'm not saying you need grapes. I'm saying, but that was one of the first exposures that a lot of people. Because Julia Child was like, "Here's someone doing sourdough in L.A.
Yeah.
Here's how you can do your own."
I mean, there's still a lot of like mythology about bread making, and bread bakers as a group, or people who kind of like have like fermentation issues. People have a tendency of like gravitating to this sort of like weird kind of mystical, spiritual, magical thinking when it comes to like our affections for the making of bread.
Anti-mystical says the Molly man.
No, I'm not the Molly man.
Okay.
The Molly. I'm not. I'm not promoting.
I certainly sounded like it.
No, it's just what people did after 9/11.
Okay.
It seemed like everyone in their 30s was doing it after 9/11. I mean, it's all the people I was hanging out with.
So to go back to like the mid 90s, right? So I remember I had never gone. So the bakery we're talking about is Sullivan Street Bakery. If you've, I don't know, never been to New York. And
I used to like, do you remember, what was the name of the bakery? Etchy.
I don't know.
Etchy Panis.
Oh, yeah.
Which later became named by people in the industry Itchy Penis, just because it was kind of what you do when you're
10.
The humor of it. Well, 11, 10-year-old. But Etchy Panis was owned by the Santos family, who owned Sign of the Dove, which was kind of the place where the elite Andrew D'Amico, imagery of like was a 5 Napkin Burger, Marseille, Nice Matin. He was like their executive chef at the time. It was a very different world back then, lower Upper East Side. So Paula Oland, who was the head baker of Balthazar, and someone who I admire immensely for her vision and her skill. She was running the bakery at the time, and that was a very influential thing for me in the early 90s because she was the head baker. I didn't know who she was. I would see her. Maybe I'd try to say hi, but I used to be sent there by 2 very wealthy women that I worked for as like their
worked as what?
As their like gopher. As their, I would get things. I would make.
Did they live together?
What?
Did they live together?
Yeah, they were a couple. They were beautiful. One was they were
just random women.
No, they were a beautiful. They were a beautiful gay couple that lived on the Upper East Side, and they ran a beautiful little button store called Tender Buttons.
I mean, I like the whole button store thing. Upper East Side, though, I don't. It's not feeling it.
Yeah,
I'm not feeling a button store on the Upper East Side. I mean, like a button store. I'm with you. Couple, with you. Upper East Side, no.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they used
like Yorkville, maybe, or like regular Upper East Side. Who shopped there?
Right off of Lex. People. They had people whose, I was going to say blue-haired women wearing Chanel jackets missing a button, and then
That's cool.
Japanese button collectors or French button collectors who would want to buy a rare cloisonné button or a rare ceramic button that was like 500 years old. One day, I remember managing a $30,000 sale of antique buttons.
Yeah, so this is not what I was picturing. This now makes sense on the Upper East Side. This is not like Daytona Fittings over in the Garment District.
Yeah, but you could also go there and get like a 20-cent button too for your whatever, your shirt or your blouse.
And it came with a little bit of where they spit on you when you walk out?
No, not at all. It was very nice.
Yeah.
It was very nice.
And let me finish.
Craftsy people.
Bread was terrible in New York City in the same way that coffee was terrible in New York City.
Well, these ladies knew that, and they wanted to make sure, in a weird kind of way, their names were Millicent and Diane. They were adorable.
That's a great name.
Millicent.
Yeah, Millicent Sappho.
Mm. Do you remember the movie Flushed Away?
And Diane Epstein. And Diane Epstein was literally a spitting image of Gertrude Stein.
Yeah.
And hence the name Tender Buttons after a Gertrude Stein poem.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It all made sense.
We're off the rails.
Yeah, we're off the rails.
But he wants to talk about
the bread. Anyway, for those of you who don't know, the bread was a revelation at the time. Sullivan Street. I went there. The first time I went there was, I think, in 96 or 7.
That late, huh?
I mean, I lived way uptown. I lived at Columbia. And then as soon as I moved down into the Garment District is when I started, coming further downtown. Although I did go to art shows all the time because I was in art school. So I was in Soho quite a bit.
What art school did you go to?
Columbia.
Okay.
Yeah, fine arts. And I did go to Tomoe because Tomoe sushi was the best deal.
Yeah.
The best deal.
Yeah, it was.
You wait in line and you get your cut rate sushi. No reservations.
I loved it. Thompson Street. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, it's one street away.
Yeah, it's still there, isn't it?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I bet it is.
It's been a long time since I've gone for cut rate sushi.
Yeah, it is cut rate though.
Yeah, but it's a great deal.
Yeah, it was.
You know what I mean?
It was. The portions were enormous.
Yeah, for freaking someone in grad school, it was genius.
Well, that was also a time when that's when a falafel sandwich at Mamoon's was only $1.50.
I remember when I was like,
it was actually $1.25.
Your Mamoon's is garbage Mamoon's. We had the real Mamoon's in New Haven.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Connecticut.
You're right.
Yeah.
That's the original. The origin.
Yeah. So I went into Sullivan Street and you guys had the Bianca, the pizza Bianca, which was like a spitting image for these things I'd had on my honeymoon a couple years prior. And I was like, this is the best. And then your whatever you call it, Semi di Sesamo, which I still buy that thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then you moved uptown and my sister-in-law. So I've kind of grown up, not grown up because I was already not young, but I mean the past, since I've had it, Sullivan Street has been often copied, but never equaled.
Well, there are, yes, every major baking company has knocked off most or all of my product line and some minor. The first people to imitate me was a company called Hudson Breads. And I remember they would make a version of the Filoni coated in wheat bran. And it was really about capturing market. So I'd see it at various kinds of restaurants or delis. And I'd be like, wow, that's amazing.
And then your old partner, Daisy, was made a similar style?
No. Then the next imitator was actually, I used to sell like so much bread to Gourmet Garage when they first opened that, they literally were buying hundreds of loaves of bread a day at their store in Soho on Broome and Mercer.
I remember that store.
And I would even remember, even in the wintertime, with a shopping cart, pushing fresh bread during the middle of a snowstorm because they called up and they were desperate because everyone was descending upon them to stock up, And then I guess the owner of the business, or one of the owners of the business, I guess they kept trying to muscle me for a steep discount.
Was it Andy?
Probably. Actually, it was. So anyway, he tried to muscle me for a discount and I wouldn't give it to him. So he got Keith from Ore Washers to knock off all the breads that I was making. And then what they did...
But in rye. No,
they did. No, it was different. The shapes were different and the fermentation was different.
Just full of caraway.
No, they basically slapped their label on it, put it where my product had been for like 2 or 3 years while I helped them build up their sales. But I'm not resentful at all.
Not at all.
Because no one shops at...
we have a theme here.
No, because no one shops at Gourmet Garage.
It's the Jim Leahy resentment hour.
Yes.
No, cooking issues.
Resentment tour. No, not at all. No, it's cool but this is also the way, unfortunately or fortunately, this is the way that people do business in New York City. It's a dog-eat-dog world. I could tell you stories about my business partner original business partner, Joe Allen, that would make your head spin.
She's Daisy?
No, Joe Allen, the restaurateur, for whom at the same time, because he did believe in me and invested in me, I'm grateful towards. My former business partner, Monica. I'm
grateful in the way that Anakin is grateful to, Obi-Wan.
Well, yeah. No, hardly. I wouldn't even make that. I hate you. No, hardly. Right. No, I mean, it's like we've all survived this together. At the end of the day, it's like I'm a small, tiny little artisan bakery in New York City trying to sell to restaurants and chefs that care about the quality of the food that they...
So in the mid-2000s, right, you'd go to a restaurant and there'd be Sullivan Street on the table. Remember back when people used to just put bread on the table? I was like, oh my God. And then be like, don't fill up on bread. I'm like, why don't you shut up? First of all, I'm not going to fill up. That doesn't happen. That's not a thing. And secondly, I want to eat the bread. But when we would get the bread, I'd be like, oh, awesome, Sullivan's. And then I would eat it, whether with olive oil or butter. By the way, what do you guys feel? You want olive oil on the table and salt or butter?
It depends on where I am, I think.
For me, it's all about the quality of all three. If it's good oil and good butter.
I mostly want oil.
If it's good oil and good butter and good bread, great. But if it's crappy oil and good bread, no.
Salted butter or unsalted butter?
It's just got to be good butter. I don't care if it's...
You don't care?
Well,
he cares.
I like Vermont Creamery. I love their butter.
You know, my current favorite butter is not even cultured.
What is it?
Beppe Ocelli's butter.
Yeah.
It's real good.
Yeah. We use Kerrygold at home.
Yeah?
I like Kerrygold.
You're an Irish...
that's my quarter Irish.
The closest good butter to me is at Essex Formaggio is the Barat, or however you pronounce it. It's good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. John, what were you going to say? You were shaking your head back there.
Well, it's clearly salted butter.
Salted butter.
There's no way around.
I was having this conversation.
But I have affection for saltless butter because I spent so much time in Tuscany.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
And I understand the psychologia.
Why would you spend time in the worst bread area in the whole world?
It's not. It's you have to understand.
We've had this conversation so many times. Peter, this is on you now. Ready?
The flour.
You ready?
What is it?
Okay. Every time he's on the show, or every time I see him, crappy Tuscan bread comes up. And for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, Tuscan bread is world renowned for the worst bread in the world. And the only reason is because they don't add salt. It's just trash. Salt is a functional ingredient. It's not just flavor. It's a functional freaking ingredient. So the bread is like pasty white looking with this weird freaking bloom on top. It just sucks. It's just bad. The texture's bad. The flavor's bad. It's trash.
I am the only one who will defend it because I've actually had really good Tuscan bread.
And Jim's like, I'll make you good Tuscan bread without salt. How many years? How many decades?
That's a good imitation. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and it's never happened. You know why? Because it cannot be done.
I have to complain a little bit more though. Of course it can.
Okay.
So I'm gonna make you.
It's not very good though.
No, I would agree with you.
But he explained to me once it's because what you're supposed to eat it with is like.
I've heard this so many times. I hate this argument so much.
But it is actually true if you think about it. The sauce that or whatever you're eating it with.
We oversalt everything else.
Yeah.
What?
Well,
But
I'm not
like,
defending it. I think it's disgusting. But
yeah.
or dunking in wine or something. You know, I mean,
Anything
Or put salted butter on it.
salt. So my theory about salted butter
but
is
it's not good.
Look,
like chefs, like a lot of chefs like unsalt. Like Wiley, my brother-in-law Wiley, is an unsalted butter guy, and I'm like, why, man? Because he's cooking a lot, and so he wants to cook. He doesn't want to add salt with it. And
but I agree with that.
when I was a kid, they used to tell you that if you should buy unsalted butter because everyone was afraid salt is a preservative. So they're afraid that someone's trying to sell you old butter and that the old butter, if it's salted, it can last longer. So it's a freshness issue. But I'm spending so much money on my butter. It's fresh. You know what I mean? It's like, it's fresh. Put salt in it so it tastes good if I'm going to put it on bread. That's all I'm saying.
yeah. Yeah. But to answer your question, it's really about the quality of all three. Or any of the two.
Okay.
I don't mind. I really don't like. I went to a restaurant once to complain again on 46th Street, like one of these old Italian restaurants, Latanzi, I think it was called.
I don't know, man.
And apart from the fact that nothing on the wine list, like I ordered a wine and the wine they served me was incorrect, and I could taste it wasn't the grape.
They didn't show you the bottle?
No, they had a list. And then I said, can you show me the wine that I ordered? Can you show? And then the waiter comes back and apologizes. And then at a certain point...
Well, you got a free bottle of wine then.
Well, no, at a certain point during the middle of the meal, I was kind of like conversing back and forth with my wife whether I should point. I was just getting very annoyed that they were serving oil as olive oil that was not olive oil.
What was it?
It was like a mixture of like... I don't even know, to be honest with you, but it was not olive oil. And so at one point I asked the waiter when the
Please
waiter,
tell me you didn't ask to see the bottle of oil.
No. I did actually. But when the waiter came over, I'm like, come closer. I'm like, it's not olive oil. And then the manager comes over and he kind of apologizes. And I'm like, but you really should. You shouldn't serve olive oil to people. I mean, it's kind of like treating the consumer or the person who's dining out like they're idiots. And I kind of feel like, there's a lot of that kind of business of restauranting, let's say, that still goes on, where people are so they're so, the reason why the restaurant wasn't crowded is because locals like me won't go there because they're like bullshitting the people, and they should own up. And if you're gonna put olive oil out, serve olive. If you're gonna put bread up,
Mental note: do not go out to dinner with Jim Lahey.
I know easy to go out with.
No, I have to go to really good restaurants where everyone cares. Oh, come on.
Yeah, come on. With your monocle?
No, never. I'm not a snob. I was spoiled by spending time in Italy. Not living a fancy life, but I had a great time and in my youth, and I was exposed to like all sorts of incredible foods and ways.
He wishes that for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also we have that here too. I mean, it's like
spit tasting is mixed oil at the
the what?
Filth. Like it's just canola oil. Imagine though if it was like straight up salad oil. The thing is, restaurants make mistakes, dude.
Yeah, but this is that's kind of like unforgivable.
Speaking of mistakes, check this out. Here's some old school Sullivans, right? So like if you go to a restaurant that had the Sullivans and then like a couple weeks later you go, sometimes they wouldn't have it. And you're like, what's up? Why don't you have the Sullivans anymore? And they would say, because you were famous for this. They'd be like, he would bring the bread and it was darker than it normally is. And he told us to take it or leave it and shut up. And we're like, okay. you know what I mean?
That might have been my bread distributor. I would never do that.
By the way, I like it dark and I like it loud. I'm not saying anything negative.
Yeah, but I'm saying, I personally never did that. But I would like not sell product to people if it wasn't made correctly. But I think my bread distributor, Joe Allen set me up so that I had no control over getting the bread to the customer, and he set up one of his guys.
It was a little bit of a
it was like an inside, like he wanted control over the distribution of the product. That was Il Forno, became Il Forno Bakery.
Yeah. Hey, you're going to take this bread or you're going to take nothing. This bread or nothing.
Well, that's why I started distributing my own bread after 9/11 because I had started receiving so many complaints that my bread distributor at the time, who I'm friends with now, I mean, he's former bread distributor / competitor, i.e. he tried to put me out of business, but he was just a pawn of Joe. He was just a pawn of Joe. That's all.
I'm friends with him now, but he's useless. He's just a pawn. He's a beta.
It was after 9/11.
He
also could have been the Molly.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't Mon. He was a pawn. No, he was just trying to like put me out of business for Joe's designs.
I see.
Joe had designs on on things.
Some current shade from me now. What's with the plastic bag? Go back to glassine. What the hell?
What plastic bag?
You were using. I got some bread from you recently with the dotted plastic bag, like the
where at Butterfield?
No, at DiPaolo's.
Really? Oh, that's them. That's not me.
I said, "Where's the Sullivan's bag?" You're just not giving them any bag.
No, we should give them. We should give them the
with the green or whatever writing.
No, yeah, it would be great if we could have glassine, but we have to import that paper from Europe, which I'm kind of working on this year. The way they bag is I think they repackage a lot of the products themselves, and I have to work with them to solve that.
They're super into hygiene, so they don't want to pick up the loaf.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, we're working on that though. I saw that recently when I went and visited Louis and Sal.
Yeah.
I hear you though.
I was like, what the hell?
They should use, those perforated.
I gave Peter hell because I saw him at that time because we were.
Oh, was it that night?
When you were going to check out, you were
Panettone.
Peter was like scoping the panettone, scoping the racks.
Scoping the racks.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So back to things that have happened this week. We almost done with the show, and we haven't even talked about the week yet. So here's what I'm going to say about this: Vegemite, yes. Vegemite. Yes.
Vegemite.
Yes. Yes. And now we need to have a taste off. I'll bring some Vegemite. We need Joe's a Marmite guy.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I like Marmite.
I've never had either.
I've never had Marmite.
I've had both.
Have you had Vegemite, Joe?
I've had both. I don't care for either of them. My wife is the Brit. She loves the Marmite. And she's heavily against the Vegemite.
Well, of course she is. Any British person hates Vegemite, and any Australian person hates Marmite. Vegemite was invented because of a Marmite shortage in Australia right after World War I. They couldn't get the shipments of Marmite from. So what? In case you didn't know what this stuff is, and someone's going to ask about nutritional yeast, I don't think you can do it. Is you get brewer's yeast?
I was going to go there, but okay.
Yeah, spent brewer's yeast. And they buy it in bulk. I think that they wash it to get some of the hops off. Although I spoke to Garrett, or texted with Garrett Oliver over at Brooklyn Brewery. I asked him if he's ever done like a Brooklamite out of like his spent yeast, and he says he hasn't. And I told him I think the technique is that you wash the yeast to get some of the hop stuff off. And he's like, well, it's difficult because some of the hops bitterness is like very tightly bound onto the yeast cell walls. But what you do is I think you wash it once, and then you kind of incubate it and with salt, and it breaks down and it leaches like all of its like, internal yeasty goodness into the liquid. You then spin out the cells, the solids, and then you have just this kind of like, broth, yeast broth without the cell walls that's mostly debittered. Then you vacuum concentrate the hell out of it down to a paste. And then I think that's it. If you're Marmite, and then if you're Vegemite, you add, I believe, celery and onion flavor.
Here's a good food history question for you, Dave, which probably have the answer. When and who invented Vegemite? Or Marmite?
Marmite was in, I believe, the 1880s, and it was based on a Justus von Liebig thing, and Vegemite was invented in like the early 20s and marketed first in 1923 in Australia.
But probably invented
in Melbourne, I think,
to deal with this large scale, industrial scale production of beer, yeast.
Yeah, it's probably one of these things going hand in hand. Like
it's like the petroleum industry gets put into the byproducts and waste products of mining and taking oil out of the earth gets put back into our asphalt.
Right. Well,
so our streets are made of like the waste of the oil industry. The plastic bottles that we drink water out of.
It's kind of overdetermined because it was also at a time in England that where people were obsessed with meat concentrates. So you had like beef tea, and you had was a thing, and you have nutrition. Like, so this idea that like a kind of lack of understanding that you need a bunch of solids to remain alive, and trying to concentrate the kind of good parts of these protein bases into these hyper concentrates. So that's where like a lot of that like all those like super concentrated broths and
lots of B vitamins.
Right.
It's also a product of the Industrial Revolution that was going full swing at that time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
As I'm saying, like a lot of it was just
So there's an
mass production of food to keep the slaves from revolting. I mean, rebelling. I'm saying
the Irish or
Well, anyone who doesn't own real property and just gets paid like an hourly wage.
Well, starting in the 1850s, so like after the French Revolution, and starting really heavily in the probably 40s and 50s, you started having kind of popular cookbooks for the poor, like Alexis Sawyer's wrote a book in the the upper 18 after our Civil War. But there's all these books where it's talk about like concentrated food for the poor and food for the masses. So Marmite comes out of this kind of attempt to provide this concentrated form of nutrition. And Vegemite was the same. In fact, Vegemite ended up in soldiers' rations in World War II, Australian Anzac soldiers' rations. So it was definitely seen as a health thingamajig.
Mm-hmm.
But what it's good at, right? I think the reason that most of us hate it is that you're not supposed to like it. So you look at it, and Vegemite is real thick, like peanut butter thick. In fact, thicker than peanut butter. And people look at it and they're like, oh, use this like peanut butter. And I don't mean flavor wise. I mean quantity wise. No. It is supposed to be the thinnest. Do you know how, like, for those of you that like grew up in New York, when I was a kid, like, you got a reasonable amount of cream cheese on a bagel. Now it's like a block of cream cheese. Like you have to get like 3 bagels to use up the cream cheese they put on one bagel. So like a real honest to God schmear, this is even thinner than that. Like, I'm talking the wisp, like wiped across the bread, and typically with butter, but it's great with avocado.
Speaking about old bakeries, do you remember the original Kosars?
Of course.
When it was good.
Of course.
It's amazing.
Mean man, mean woman. Yeah.
Gone.
They were so mean. I loved their bialys were fantastic, and I liked their bagels too.
Their bialys were like the bomb back in the 80s.
And I thought their bagels were good. They were good all the way up until 2007.
Yeah.
Something like that.
But I think someone bought the brand
twice.
And is trying to like roll.
They bought it twice.
Yeah.
So the first time it got bought, when they sold out, that's when it was crazy, because that I live on that block. Mm-hmm. So like that, and I've lived there for 20 something years. So like when I first moved there, that entire block was shut down on Fridays and Saturdays, like super orthodox, right? Even though most of the younger generation had already moved across the bridge to Williamsburg, like the old timers were still there. So you had Gertel's, which made fantastic babka, and all of these places were not open on Fridays and Saturdays. And then all of a sudden, Kosars got sold, and all of a sudden they were open on Fridays and Saturdays. And there was a sign in the window, which I have a picture of somewhere, where they were like, to our Orthodox customers, we sell this business every week on Friday morning to a goy, and then we buy it back on Sunday, so that they could, like, a goy was operating the business during the Sabbath, and like the real honest to God kosher folk were running it, because it was a serious kosher neighborhood. Like when the people down my hallway had a kid, like when I went to Gertel's, I had to get a special seal on the box to prove that I hadn't that it was still okay. You know what I mean? Like, it was not a fake neighborhood. So then it went from that, and then we used to have all these vending machines in the neighborhood 24/6. It was like Sabbath vending machines. They're awesome. Anyway, so
that my first baking job ever when I was in high school was making bagels.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Where?
I used to work at a place on Hillside Avenue which burnt down, by the way, called Bagel Express. Burnt down a couple of years ago. I was so sad to see it go.
What era?
This would have been 1981.
Yeah. So did you have everything bagels?
Yeah. We had all the bagels you could possibly think of, except for rainbow bagels back then. It was pretty much a straightforward bagel bakery.
When was the everything bagel? I forget. It was somewhere around the 80s, right?
Yeah, no, we had everything bagels.
Yeah, rainbow bagels are
kind of silly.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's that new book that just came out on sourdough.
I didn't read it.
I know.
Is it about rainbow sourdough bagels?
But it's so silly.
Is that a thing? Rainbow sourdough bagels?
It's funny. I started reading the foreword.
What's worse, rainbow bagels or blueberry bagels?
I think look.
Does a rainbow bagel taste like anything?
No, no. I think they're egg bagels.
Oh.
So to get the yellow, I think they're egg bagels. I'm not sure. I like egg bagels, but I don't love egg bagels. I'm not an egg bagel guy. I'm not against them. I'm not saying they shouldn't exist.
The problem with bagels is that they're always good when they're fresh.
I mean, yeah.
That's the problem with like all baked goods.
But if you take it and you dry it for like 3 days, we never asked you this. So like your crazy crouton recipe, let's get back to the crazy crouton recipe.
I'm sorry, we're going to circle back.
What happens if you just rip it up and then soak it and then dry it again and without going through the whole mishigas?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could do that. I mean, really, the most important thing is it's about staling it. It has to be completely stale.
Mm-hmm.
So the only issue is that if you were to take shreds of bread, like ripped from the inside of the crumb, stale it on a sheet tray, and then rehydrate it, and then try to press out the water and re-dry them, that might work.
You think the pressing is necessary?
Well, I mean, if like a sponge, it's going to take forever to dry.
I mean, I got time.
And most likely with the content of starch in the flora of your hands from having pressed it, most likely it will mold. So if you remove the water quickly enough, it's like panko breadcrumbs are made in this way.
Panko breadcrumbs have a special machine. They bake it between two resistive plates so that the fibers go straight up in the air. I mean, like panko is like a very tweaked out Megillah.
You know what? I've tested it out. Panko breadcrumbs, somehow they're
also crustless.
Well, that's another thing too.
Crustless.
But in my, I don't want to say opinion, it's a dangerous word. What I've been able to do is replicate the texture of panko breadcrumbs using the same method.
Oh, I see. All right. Well, so how do you orient the strands? Is it in the compression you orient the strands?
It's about the crumb. The starches crystallize. When bread completely stales, like if you don't let the bread stale, then what happens when you rehydrate it? It remains gummy, and it won't hold its shape. Let's say so. When bread, if you take a very stale piece of bread and you break it in half, and you have a microscope that's strong, even if your eye, you could see that it is crystallizing. That the crumb crystallizes. It dries so much that it crystallizes. So when you rehydrate it, you change the actual structure of the starch, especially when you remove the water once again from it. It's almost like you can take bread that's incredibly stale, and we did this for whatever Dan Barber once upon a time when he was doing his whole wasted thing. He asked various people to make. I made him some bread with. You can take old bread and put it back into a mixer. Let's say if you rehydrate it.
Yeah. Hold on a second. The compression, when you squeeze it, is that oriented? Because the panko is not just that it's dried out and it's crustless. It's also that the cells are oriented because of the way it's baked. So do you get some of that orientation when you...
It's not baked. It's dried. Panko breadcrumbs are white. So let's say you're making...
Because they're baked in a resistive oven where they never touch normal heat. But like the prime thing is that it's oriented. So is the compression... What I'm trying to get out of you is when you squeeze it again, are you getting some of that acicular shape of the cells? Like
you could theoretically centrifuge water out of the crumb of stale bread too. I'm not sure of the process because I've never been to a panko.
You got to go. It's amazing. You would hate it and love it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
However, if you want to make your own panko style breadcrumbs that are even better than panko breadcrumbs,
that's strong words.
You should. The recipe exists in the 15-year anniversary of my bread, which comes out today.
Oh, is that why you were here?
Yeah.
No one even told me. Oh,
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Save the lead. Save the.
They didn't send you the book?
You're a dummy. No, I didn't get the book.
No,
it was sent to your house.
I didn't get it. Do you have it here?
No,
of course not.
Son of a gun.
It's fine.
Well, this is
because normally I read the whole book. And then we talk about it, but I have not received the book.
And then also in the cookbook.
So it's the 15th anniversary
of my bread with some updates and additions. Peter patiently helped rewrite a lot of it.
Does it still have your face with the bread over it?
No. Oh yeah, that picture's still there.
Yeah.
The cover, they changed the cover. We have a bunch of recipes that use miso paste.
Miso? Huh?
Because I love miso paste.
Do you? What kind of miso?
Red.
Oh, speaking of miso,
blonde.
holy crap. We got to give a shout out to, so our good friend, Rich Shee has a new Substack called Flavor Freaks, where he, talks, you go join that like you just join a Patreon. I don't really know how Substack works.
Yeah, it's tricky.
But Rich is like one of the, he is old school Koji McKoji and the Get Fresh Kojis. So, we want to support him as much as we can. And I can't believe you have a new book out. I didn't even. So
that's the kind of guy that I am. I don't.
Does it still have the slug? Does it still have the slug? The same slug? No work, no.
Yeah. No work, no need.
Maria Guarnaschelli.
Maria Guarnaschelli.
Maria Guarnaschelli.
I love Maria.
Oh my God. I was thinking about her today when she, literally, when she said to me, I mentioned someone, and she says, "Oh, I hope they're dead. Please, someone call me and tell me he's dead." And I was like, "Oh my God, so Maria." I think about her quite often.
I do too.
Yeah.
She actually gave me so much advice I didn't listen to. Like, name my book The Lahey Method, as opposed to associate my name with instead of it being no-knead. Because of course, once Bittman named it no-knead, all of a sudden it becomes a feeding frenzy and everyone's saying, "I invented that recipe. And it's like it doesn't really matter. It existed before all of us. And at the end of the day, it's like how everyone bakes now. I mean, it's like everyone does videos on this method, and it's just how people bake. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. All right.
Like
So
that's the legacy. Is like you plant seeds and you don't get to see what happens afterwards, which is kind of cool.
Why don't you get to see? Were you going to die before they sprout?
No, because we'll see how many new artisan bakeries open up in New York City in the next 3 to 5 years.
Biff wants to know. Can you speak about using fresh, high extraction flour? So remove the bran fragments, but keep a significant ash content in no-knead doughs. What hydration do you go for? And how many folds? Is a sourdough method okay? Or do you recommend commercially yeasted? And I'm going to add, because there's different ways to make high extraction flour. So I'm curious whether this is like single pass, home mill, one sift, or exactly what you're doing. All are going to produce different flours. All right, go to it.
It really depends on the flour and the quality of the flour to store it, the quality of the grain to store it. I always say that with bread making, it's all about the falling number. So if the falling number is high, you can have dough ferment a lot. And then you can make it into something that will actually proof and become enjoyable to eat.
Right. So falling numbers,
is a way of measuring the quality of the protein in the flour. It doesn't matter what the percentage of the protein is. It matters that the quality of the protein.
So enzymes in flour will break down starches. When the enzymes break down starches, the dough goes slack because it can no longer hold the water that it was once holding, especially damaged starch. So the higher the damaged starch amount in your flour, the more important the enzymes are to the dough structure. And the more enzymes that are present or the more active they are, the more slack your dough is going to go over time. So if you have what's called a low falling number, it means you have very active enzymes, which can happen a lot if you're milling your own flour and you don't have control, if there's been any sprouting.
It could also flours from Tuscany
have a
very low falling number. They would be like flour grown in Pennsylvania. It's more for cake.
And literally the way they measure this, I think, is to make a slurry, let it sit for a known amount of time, and then drop a stick through it and see how fast the stick takes to fall. I think that's how it works.
No, actually, it has to do with, it's actually in a tube, and the dough actually, don't
they drop something through it?
I always thought a falling number was like a violograph. They're measuring the length of time, the volume that the dough will actually hold, its level.
Oh, I thought they were measuring how long it takes something to drop through it.
Maybe.
I don't know. Whatever. It's a measure of how slack the thing goes. But you could make your own you don't need like the commercial. If you're milling your own flour, Biff, you can just make something and then compare it with something of a known high falling number, right? But the issue is this: the falling number is going to also be related to what the how much water a particular flour wants to take up.
And also, if you know that your dough is weaker, your flour is weaker, you would not ferment it as much before shaping it and change your expectation about what the end product, the finished end product, is supposed to be like texturally. So if you want it to perform like a bag of commercial flour you buy in the supermarket, you're going to be very disappointed.
Yeah. I mean, I have found that...
I love wheat bran. I love leaving the bran inside wheat because it does actually enhance the fermentation because of all the enzymes.
I've found that home milled flour of unspecified falling number, remember, you need a lot higher hydration because the bran soaks up a lot more water than the other stuff for a given protein. 4 to 1. Yeah.
4 to 1.
And so I find that a lot of times those doughs will go slack on super long fermentations if you're grinding your own.
Yeah.
That's been my experience.
Yeah.
And no one wants your dough to go slack.
No one wants your dough to go slack.
Yeah.
Nothing worse than a slack dough.
Yeah.
It's a real disappointment.
Well, on the other hand, they never get, I mean, like when you do this high hydration, when you do high hydration with those, with these, they never get kind of as taut as like some of the commercial flours. Like, when you're folding your stuff and putting it kind of holds itself. Sometimes these doughs, when they get like older, can just spread
I want
out.
to answer Biff's question. So anyway, the folding will strengthen the dough. It will also, if you're using sourdough, I've found folding does seem to benefit more the fermentation of yeasts over bacteria. But that also could be anecdotal because it has a lot to do with the temperature of the dough. But depending on the hold temperature of the dough, yeasts replicate a lot slower than do bacteria. And also it has a lot to do with both the quantity and the state of the sourdough, the starter that you add. So if the dough has a large percentage of starter and it's not acidic, it will behave and act on the remaining, the flour and water that you're adding it to differently than if you had like a small little chunk that was like acid. Do you think high ash and high bran doughs are more susceptible to losing their structure when the acid goes too high, when the pH drops too much, as opposed to when you're using a standard bread flour? High ash and high what? Like
a high extraction. So if there's more bran in there,
yeah.
Right? Do you think that they're more susceptible to kind of gluten breakdown when the pH goes too low?
No, I think it has. I mean, I think that bran particle size has a lot to do with it and shape. So if you've noticed that some flours, whole wheat flours will have like very large, like Stone Mills will give you these bran flakes that are large and flat. Whereas some roller mill companies or millers will have like the bran broken up into this.
I've never had one of those I liked.
Yeah, what?
I've never had a roller milled whole wheat flour I enjoy.
I kind of agree with you there.
Yeah, it's terrible stuff. It's nightmare.
But they can do that.
I've tried as many as I can find, and I've never had a roller milled whole wheat flour that I thought was worth spit.
Who's your favorite flour producer regionally?
I don't buy flour anymore.
Do you eat bread?
Yeah, but I mill it all.
Okay.
I do only home mill.
Where do you get your grains from?
All over, actually. So, right now I've been getting my favorite. I like the Belle de Rouge, which I forget which farmer gets it, but I get that mainly from Breadtopia. I like Yokoro Rojo. I like Turkey Red. I think Red Fife's overrated.
But you're buying regionally.
No, I can't anymore. I used to be able to buy them, and then the green market stopped doing grain sales. And
really?
so,
When did that happen?
like 2 years ago.
Wow, it's too bad.
Yeah, I used to be able to buy 50-pound sacks from them from local farmers. Back then, I used to get Redeemer and Warthog locally.
Yeah.
But you can't anymore. Wait, hold on. Z-Banks, I accidentally ordered a huge bag of nutritional yeast, 10 times the size I intended. I love it on eggs and popcorn, but can only eat so much. I also tried it in pizza dough, hoping to get more depth and umami, but it didn't really make any difference. Maybe I should just add more. What are some other good uses for nutritional yeast? You got any good nutritional yeast uses?
I like as a substitute for, yes, I like using nutritional yeast on pasta made with mushrooms.
All right.
Yeah, it's really great.
Yeah, I like it in coleslaw.
Yeah, I like it on kale. Kale salads. Yeah, whatever.
Kale salad. You just triggered me. I don't have any, I'm out of time, and you just said kale salad. World's worst salad.
No, it's not.
It's trash.
I'm going to make you a kale salad.
Oh my God! With the Tuscan bread?
No.
All right, listen, Alexander. I'm going to talk about your vanilla bean problem next time when we're back on cooking issues. But I have my issues with vanilla extracts. I love it, but making vanilla extract because I think vanilla extract, like commercial vanilla extract, is like not like the way we would make it at home. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, buy the new edition of the book. So how many? Is this one of those things where I have to buy even if I have the old one because it's got a bunch of new stuff in it?
It's got a bunch of new
Peter,
stuff.
I'm going to let Peter answer that one.
There are 5 new recipes and a foreword by Martha Stewart.
Ooh. All right.
It's up to you. If that matters to you.
All right. See you soon. Cooking Issues.